Hello and welcome back to Comics Over Time. This season, which we're calling Murdock and Marvel, a history of Marvel Comics starring Daredevil, we're breaking down the year in the comic book industry in two parts. In part one, we'll look at the state of the comic book industry as a whole, as well as what things were going on in society that may have impacted the comic book industry during that year. We'll talk big picture about what's going on at DC and independent comics, then we'll shift our focus to Marvel. We'll look at who is creating comics, what new characters or storylines were introduced, and which comics debuted or ended. In part 2, we'll dive deep into Marvel's longest-running characters, Matt Murdock. We'll look at what the year had in store for the Man Without Fear, key things that happened, and who joined or left his world before spotlighting one key issue or story. From there, we'll wrap up the year's discussion with a takeaway before moving on to another year and a whole new discussion. We're excited to have you join us on a trip through comic book history. We are back, another new year. It is 2023, just 2 more episodes after this one to get us up to present day. My name is Dwayne, and with me, as always, is my good buddy Dan. Dan, how you doing this week?
Absolutely great. It's been busy times, but fun times. Having a good time with stuff, and it was fun just kind of going back and reviewing the very recent past this week. So a lot of these books I've barely gotten actually sorted into my collection, and now we're talking about them. So
yes, it's definitely interesting. We for Daredevil's sake, we were picking up in the middle of a storyline this year, and so that's pretty interesting. A lot happens there. So there was a bunch of movies that came out, all sorts of lots of things to talk about this week, basically.
Absolutely, busy times.
And it definitely is. We're now close enough that I can actually remember that this is some of the stuff that was going on with just a couple years ago. It's not like a few years ago, like a decade or more feels like a millennia ago at this point. Now
Yes.
These actually don't feel like they were that long ago.
That is correct. Yep, these are very recent. So
yes.
It's been go ahead.
No.
Yeah, one other thing, by the way, Daredevil fans, to note before we move on, is that next week, a book you might want to stop and take a look at is coming out. I have not actually read it yet because don't have like a preview copy or anything, and it has not debuted. But Alex Segura is a writer I have really, really enjoyed. He's done a bunch of great comic books. He's also done a few novels, including the Alter Ego books, which are kind of a comic history series, but they're detective novels. And he's now actually doing a book. It's a novel called Daredevil, Enemy of My Enemy, that hits bookstores on the 10th. So probably right around the time this episode is dropping or the day before it'll be coming out. If you're interested in reading more Daredevil in prose form, I can't recommend Segura enough. He's done a great job on all the books that I've seen. So I was obviously got a good comic pedigree, but also is a great writer just in general. So
That sounds wonderful. Thank you for the heads up that is coming. We mentioned it a few weeks ago, but we did want to reiterate, just a reminder that we are going to be going on hiatus after we get through the 2025 year. Dan is in the middle of his teaching class. I am in the middle of my new job, almost a month in at this point, and I'm doing some licensing training that is taking all of my time, and I should probably be doing more outside of work studying as well to ensure a passing grade. So it's unfortunate because also there's been now trailers for Born Again season 2 that are coming out. We have a release day opening. The first episode's going to drop apparently on March 24th on Disney Plus. I don't think we're going to be able to do weekly episodes to kind of cover that because we'll be in the middle of our hiatus at that point. But definitely know that we'll be watching, and we'll probably do something when we come back to talk about it, I think.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good. Yeah, it is unfortunate that it's going to be right during that time, but hey, that's the way it goes. And it is still good to get more Daredevil back. It's going to be interesting to see season 2. I enjoyed season 1. I think that for me, the new Daredevil still is not as good as the old Daredevil. It's got distinctly less Foggy.
Yeah, I was going to say, if they bring Foggy back,
it's going to help a lot.
It will go a long way towards bridging that gap, won't it?
Yeah, he's in all of the the Comic-Con panels and the other stuff and everything else. So there's no reason to believe that he will not be back. But I retain my grumpiness on that. So we'll see how it goes.
Definitely seems like there's some Karen Page going on in there, in at least in the trailers that it does seem that we're seeing. So, Dan, did you have one other note here before we get started about Comic Book Yeti?
Yeah, just that basically I used to do a bunch of reviews for Comic Book Yeti, doing a lot of things with history and then occasional comic reviews. I have, because I'm looking to keep a little bit of writing going on. I am actually going to be writing occasional reviews again. I just got my first review books, something called Barbaric. It's a new series that is a series of books from Vault that I really enjoy, and they got some new stuff out. So in the next few weeks or month, you should see that review pop up on the Comic Book Yeti website. If you're not a regular reader of CBY, it is a fantastic place to find out about new comics. Almost exclusively, they deal in non-Marvel and DC stuff, small press stuff, Kickstarter stuff, and then they do a ton of interviews, really with some of even the biggest creators in comics right now. So it's a great place. Both the Comic Book Yeti podcast, which I think we've had trailers for and ads for on here earlier, and then also the website as well.
We will make sure that there is a link in the show notes so you can check that out. Glad to hear that you'll still be able to do some writing as well. Mm-hmm. All right, Dan, let's talk 2023. Why don't you set the stage for us, just kind of as the lead-in for the year?
So first off, the line points up finally broke.
Okay.
The sort of pandemic surge that we'd had, that had brought comics to really their highest sales figures ever in history, finally did end. Sales dropped, but they didn't crater. They dropped about 7% from 2022's all-time high. Even so, both the sales and the quality for this year, made this another absolutely immaculate year of American comics. So we had tons of great stuff that came out. Obviously, they're still selling near record amounts of product. And it's a really vibrant time in the comics at the local store and in bookshops. In movie theaters, well, something slightly different is going on, and so we'll talk about that. And that did definitely color some people's opinion of this year as far as comics.
Yeah, I remember going and seeing a couple of these movies in the theater, and but I don't know. Without further ado, let's jump in and let's talk about the year in comics. The year in comics. All right, Dan, let's rip off the Band-Aid right away. You talked about the movies not really being so hot. I see some movies that I went and saw in the theater that maybe I wish I hadn't. Was there anything decent this year?
So first off, I would like to note that decent and popular are different things this year. In some ways.
I suppose that's true. That's true.
I guess to start out, we normally start with DC. DC had four major releases this year. They brought out Blue Beetle, sequel to Aquaman, which is called Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the sequel to Shazam, called Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and the long-awaited The Flash movie, which sort of was the standalone film from The Flash, one of the Justice Leaguers and the like coming out of the DC universe sort of proper. The idea would have been that these would have made a ton of money, right? Because previously, superhero movies, anything decent, DC, Marvel branded, is going to make $500 million to $1 billion. The four of them together barely made $1 billion. So Blue Beetle crashed, and I liked that show. It was a cool story. It's on the new Blue Beetle. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was the one that made the most money of them. It was 440 million. This one, if you'll remember, is the one with like the big creature that he has to go and face in the secret pool and the like. It is not a good movie. It's not a terrible movie. It was entertaining, but it wasn't great. Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I actually enjoyed this. I thought it was a decent show, but it wasn't maybe great. It didn't deserve to make as little as it did. It only made 134 million. I mean, it's a certifiable bomb, just like Blue Beetle was. And then The Flash hit 271 million, which was even worse because I think the production costs on that, with all of the cameos and all the different flashbacks and everything, would have been colossal.
Yeah, the special effects in that film probably cost a pretty significant total.
Yep.
I mean, they were doing CGI of freaking everybody in that movie as well. I've never seen the Aquaman movies, so I remember Blue Beetle trailer actually being kind of interesting, but I have yet to see it. I did see Shazam and The Flash in the theater, and both of those movies I wish I hadn't. Shazam, I didn't like the first
Shazam one. Okay, both of them you did go to.
Yeah,
okay.
Both of them. Shazam, I didn't really care for the first Shazam film, but I could see the merits of that film compared to Shazam: Fury of the Gods, and it just did not. It did not hit. I don't think it hit like the first one hit. Definitely didn't. And then The Flash. I mean, Ezra Miller had some issues going into that and like during production and things like that. And even getting to see Michael Keaton as Batman again wasn't enough. I think that's part of the reason it ended up. I think it would have been in that 130 million had Michael Keaton not been in that film.
Yeah. And replaying the Flashpoint storyline and stuff like that, there were some things that they did there that were cool and some things that I didn't really like. But I mean, when you really take away from it is the idea that none of these films had additional sequels. And essentially the entire DC staff and all of the actors involved essentially were fired. And they started over new with James Gunn.
Yes.
Like later that year or the next year. So this was essentially the end of the DCEU proper in terms of what they've been trying to do going back to sort of the Zack Snyder day. And this is what caused the house cleaning. Next one I want to just focus on is one I watched with my kids a while ago.
Okay.
And it's a movie called The Archies. And it is essentially about all of the Riverdale kids, like the Archie Andrews and the like.
Uh-huh.
But the story is, it's an Indian movie from like Bollywood. And essentially it's told where Riverdale is a small community sort of in the north part of India someplace. But outside of that, it is the most sort of loving and authentic portrayal of the Archie kids and universe I think I've ever seen in live action. It's absolutely amazing. It is also one of those dancing Bollywood musical kind of things.
Sure. I was sort of assuming.
So it is absolutely just bonkers. But if you want a recommendation for a fun comic book movie for the family, The Archies is a really good option. It's a lot of fun.
Very nice.
We also had Nimona, the animated version of the very popular graphic novel. This has been extremely successful, very popular with younger comics fans and potential comics fans. So I think that was a rousing success. Obviously, old, gray white dudes like me complained about all sorts of things on it on the internet. But in actual terms, Nimona's a fantastic movie.
All right.
Extraction 2 came out with Hemsworth. So Oni got its sequel. We had Shortcomings, which is based on some Adrian Tomane scripts. I think he actually, in fact, even wrote some of the screenplay. Of course, he's sort of one of those indie darlings that's written a bunch of stuff over the years, like Optic Nerve and the like. We had The Killer, based off of a French graphic novel that was directed by David Fincher of Seven fame and the like. It is a very sort of slow, methodical type of show, but actually I really liked the killer. I thought it was pretty cool. We had a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated movie called Mutant Mayhem, which was, I think, a lot of fun. It made some money. It was pretty well done.
Okay.
We had a Spider-Man fan film called Lotus that tried to come out this year.
Okay.
Ended up having some controversies and the like, but it actually been like fan funded and everything like that. It had been in development for years. It was lovingly made. Unfortunately, some controversial stuff happened right at the end as they were getting ready to bring it out. I believe that what's happened actually is there's a new version of this that was released just in the last year that sort of changed up a little bit, focused some more on sort of the Peter Parker elements and less on the Spider-Man elements, and has been better received. But it was interesting that essentially we were at the point, and I think we are at the point, where just somebody in their basement can make an actual full-fledged superhero movie if they want to. So
crazy.
Ant-Man and the Wasp is one of the Marvel movies then that came out this year. It made a bit of money, $622 million. I think most of us, thinking back now, are surprised that the Bill Murray Marvel movie somehow made that much money. It is this was, in my opinion, one of the worst things Marvel has ever done. I hated this movie in every way. I hated MODOK. I hated the fact that you basically had an entirely CG and created universe. So every scene was just this weird brown CGI mess. But somehow it broke $500 million, right? Marvel had 2 other movies this year. The Marvels, which was a silly movie, but actually I enjoyed far more than Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah,
it made only $200 million. It completely died, which is interesting because the first Captain Marvel made over $1 billion. It's one of the more successful movies. And then this one just almost nothing. It was, however, from the very beginning, just pounded online by negative press and the like. I think that didn't help. I will also say that I don't think it was a great movie. It was fun, but if you wanted to pick holes in it, it was easy to pick holes in it. If you wanted to just enjoy it, it was relatively easy to enjoy it. Then we have the 2 sort of big successes. It surprises me that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse from Sony actually made just a little bit more money than Ant-Man and the Wasp. It was $690 million. But I think it was definitely a critical and fan success. The Spider-Verse movies have been just brilliant. We're now waiting on the last one. Who knows when that's going to come out? But
it seemed like it was supposed to have come out by now, and then it got pushed back, and then it seems like it got pushed back again, and so it might be 2028 before we see it, I think is what the latest is on that, if I remember right.
It got caught up in the fact that the directors, the Lord, and I can't remember what they actually, some of the way that they treated some of their animators and the like, and some of the working conditions evidently were borderline abusive, or past the border of abusive, and so they had to redo things and redo the way they did things, and I think it didn't particularly work well. So these are the guys who did the Lego movie and everything else. They kind of had their way, and for a while they got away with it, but it appears that the animators revolted, and that has sort of thrown off the schedule. Probably for the best for those folks, but it does mean that we have no idea when it's going to be now. And then the last one, Guardians of the Galaxy, $845 million, really the biggest success of the year as far as comic book movies.
Yeah, this was volume 3. This is the final one of that trilogy, the last Marvel movie, presumably that James Gunn will ever make, because now being kind of the co-head of DC and their movie properties. This was a fantastic film. I actually just watched most of it again recently, and yeah, that ending is rough, and the beginning is rough actually as well, given the treatment of the animals that the High Evolutionary had in there. It's not an easy watch, but it is actually a very, very well written and well, just felt very much like the first 2 films, and got received pretty much like the other two films as well.
Yeah, it sucked the landing, and which I think is always important for this sort of stuff. And yeah, gave Gunn a good going away. Obviously, don't ever say never with this sort of thing, because
right.
He may well make his way back again, but as of for the next probably decade, all of this stuff is now closed off, and most of these actors have moved on. Most of them actually trying to move on to DC so they can work with James Gunn again.
Yes.
So that's
yes.
Marvel has seen a mass evacuation of a lot of these folks. They're very dedicated to their director, but yeah, so that was our year in movies. Overall, it was kind of a bloodbath because we had like 4 DC movies, we had 4 Marvel/Sony movies, and among them, really, there were only, I would say, 2 or 3 good movies, and only 2 of them that actually made really, really good bank. Ant-Man and the Wasp, I guess, as well, crossing 500 million, but I can't think of that as a success regardless.
Yeah, no.
I just can't do it.
What about on the TV side? What were we seeing on TV for adaptations?
Bunch of stuff. Gotham Knights, Bodies, Essex County, The Chosen One, and The Walking Dead versions, Dead City and Daryl Dixon from Image there. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, the animated show that has all of the voice actors from the original movie, came out. Really enjoyed that. And then only one. But when it's this good, you need more than one in a year, right?
Good asterisks there.
Secret Invasion was pretty terrible, and kind of like with the stuff that happened with the movies, it sort of ended the DC TV universe in a lot of ways. We saw a massive sort of slowdown and the like after that because this was just a mess, and it's unfortunate. Samuel Jackson kind of gets his leading role. This is the Nick Fury movie, really, and I really wish it had been better, but it was not.
And they killed Maria Hill for virtually no reason whatsoever.
Right at the beginning, yeah.
Yeah.
And created a character who is essentially the strongest character in the history of the Marvel or DC universes, because she has basically every power of everybody. And now what do you do with that?
Yeah. Yes,
you blow up the universe and start over, so you don't have to deal with it. That's what you do.
The superest of super scrolls or something there at that point, yes. All right, so on the comic book side, what are some of these standouts that you'd like to mention?
So much good stuff, but just a few to hit on. Barnstormers by Scott Snyder and Tula Lote was beautiful, kind of historical fiction type of stuff. Birds of Prey by Kelly Thompson and Leonardo Romero was celebrated, probably above almost any of the superhero books that came out this year. Monica by Daniel Close came out. Wonder Woman Historia, The Amazons by Kelly Sue DeConnick and a number of fantastic artists it's this oversized, gorgeous sort of retelling of the history of the Amazons. That was pretty amazing. Great British Bump Off by John Allison and Max Sarin, those who were famous from Giant Days, one of my favorite books of the last few decades. It was also awesome. Rare Flavors by Ram V and Philippe Andrade is a story of sort of this god that goes around essentially killing people and eating them. And the guy that he sort of has lead him around to find his victims unknowingly. It sounds weird, but it is in fact just an absolutely gorgeous story. Kaya by Wes Craig comes out this year. It's almost sort of an all-ages story, but is also just really amazing writing and art. This Country, Searching for Home in Very Rural America, is a kind of memoir that came out. A lot of people liked. Love Everlasting by Tom King and Elsa Chartier, which I started this one. I have no idea what happened in it. It confused and angered me. And now they've gone on hiatus for like God knows how long.
Oh, no.
And I have no idea at all what's going on. So if they ever finish it, I would recommend Love Everlasting. But I would not start it now until you find out that they're actually going to finish it, because it's kind of frustrating.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
And then Local Man by Fleece and Seeley was also one that was well received and I really enjoyed.
I'm going to ask you your favorites at the end before we transition to Daredevil. So we're just going to move on to comic sales. All right, Dan, that's a great look at some of the individual things that were going on the TV and movie side, and some of the standout comics that you wanted to touch on. Let's talk about comic sales. You said the line finally didn't go up. It went down a little bit, but it's still really good.
Still really good. And we have far less detailed information now, because with the breakup of Diamond and some of the other stuff, Comicron and the others really can't get good breakdown numbers on a lot of this stuff. So we can tell how many books were published. And so Marvel published a few more books. They're up to 925, down from 855. DC Image, a lot of the others actually published about the same or a little bit less. But overall, the number of books published actually went up, even as sales went down. I think that happens sometimes, where they try to push more as sales go down to see if they can make it up somehow. Book Channel actually was about 1.41 billion of the total, direct market about 675. So the Book Channel continues to dominate as the place where most of our things are bought. Graphic novels now are 3 times or more the amount as comic books. So the number of people buying things in the pamphlet form is far, far lower than the number of people buying them in collected editions. And
Gotcha.
I think this is something that's really important to note, because the problem is, for a long time, purchases of the comics determined what got made into a graphic novel. And that, I think, really caused some trouble, because a lot of stuff that would be popular with people in the Book Channel never made it, because the assumption was, because people in comic book stores didn't buy them, they weren't really something that appealed to people.
Sure.
So you were kind of using the comic store as a filter of what was going to be put in the bookstore. That's largely gone now. And that's, I think, one of the things that has really expanded the popularity of the graphic novels. But overall, that's really all I've got, is we went down about 7%. Book Channel is still dominant. Graphic novels are still dominant. And there's about 5,000 different books published this year.
So with that, does that mean then that just about everything gets collected and put into the bookstore? Or how do they know what to put in there now?
Pretty much, I think that these days that is generally the case, that almost everything that, unless the sales are really low and the reviews are bad and they're just like, man, nobody likes this, then they might not. But most things that are published that are 4 or 5 issue series, what'll happen is, in previews, you see issue 1, 2, 3, 4. You maybe see a month skip, and then the next one you see the graphic novel trade paperback version of the collected edition offered up. So if you want to get something before everybody else, and it's being offered that way, you'd buy the comics and you can read them before it comes out. Otherwise, if you wait, you buy the collected edition, and you'll get it a few months after that has happened. Or in some cases now they're skipping doing the floppies at all, and obviously just writing towards the trade instead.
Gotcha. Right. So is there any other big comic book news that's going on? What are some of this highlights on that
I think
front?
So. Yeah. So Distillery starts up. It's a new company actually founded by a bunch of the more popular creators in comics right now. Their first book, The Devil's Cut, which is kind of a sampler, comes out. Skybound publisher starts up what's called the Energon universe with a book called Void Rivals. That's eventually going to fold in sort of the Transformers and G.I. Joe Hasbro universes and become a whole thing.
Oh, okay.
It is going to be very popular. There's a book called Zarya of the Dawn, a comic book that was written, quote unquote written, by Chris Kashtova, I think. But then he used artificial intelligence to essentially Midjourney to illustrate it, and applied for copyright protection as a comic. And the patent office revoked that and said that you cannot patent, you cannot copyright artificial intelligence generated artwork. So he could evidently copyright the story if he wrote the story, but he can't copyright the actual artwork, because the fact that it's not actually created by people.
Sure.
There were a number of interesting things, like Goodreads actually got rid of its graphic novels and children's and middle grade novel book awards in 2023. Some kickback to that. I think they may have put them back in at some point. Scott Adams, our man from Dilbert back in the day, which I used to read Dilbert. And then it turned out he was kind of a nut job years ago. So I stopped. Well, this year he came out as full racist, got himself essentially dropped from his syndicate and the like. Kind of a quick drop for him, unfortunately. Bill Willingham had a disagreement with DC and sort of how they were going to handle the intellectual property for Fables, a book that he'd been working on for decades. Much like the same problems that a lot of other people have had over the years in terms of who owns this, who has reprint rights, whatever. And so in sort of a protest, he actually released the entire Fables IP catalog into the public domain, essentially saying, well, if I can't have it, and you're going to keep fighting on me, or everybody can. So Fables is now public domain. I think DC tried to fight it. I'm not sure how that actually has gone, if they've even completely got it sorted out yet. And we did also have a teacher down in Texas this year who was fired for assigning the graphic novel adaptation of Diary of Anne Frank. Essentially, the school district complained that there were things with like nudity and sexuality and stuff like that. A lot of people criticized it, but again, we're starting to see more and more of this sort of the censorship of things in schools and in libraries and the like coming down and affecting comics and comic creators.
Gotcha.
And then last and definitely not least, I did not know this, but Bill Waterston of Calvin and Hobbes fame evidently released a graphic novel this year called The Mysteries. It's the first major release by Waterston in decades. And somehow I did not hear about it. So I need to go and find this now and buy/read it. But
okay.
But yeah, so that's kind of amazing. Waterston remains one of my favorite comic creators of all time. He is. I've often thought that he should be like the comic laureate of America because he is that good.
Can't argue with that. Let's talk about a couple notable passings that occurred in 2023.
There are a number of other names as well that could be on this list, but I'm just going to concentrate on two. One of them, John Romita Sr., of course, American comic book artist. He is somebody who worked with Marvel in the early days. After Ditko leaves Spider-Man, he sort of comes on and becomes the Spider-Man artist for the next, decade. Significant amount of time anyways. And then, of course, he's also important from his legacy in terms of, he's got a John Romita Jr. coming down the pike as well, who then becomes another great Marvel artist in the future. But so he passed away this year at age 93. And then Keith Giffen, another of my favorite comic book artists. He also did a lot of writing as well. A lot of his writing was more sort of like humorous and the like, Ambush Bug and Justice League stuff and things like that. My favorite of his works actually is his work on the Legion of Superheroes in the 80s. He did the Great Darkness Saga, which remains one of my favorite comic stories of all time. But he passed away of a stroke at age 70. I'd actually been seeing him regularly at conventions the years coming up to that, because he was a regular at like C2E2, the Chicago convention, and places like that. Sure. Known as one of the crankiest people in comic books, but still a great dude and fun to talk to. You just had to occasionally I'd be hanging out listening to him, and he would go off on something. But luckily never me. I was just there while he went off. Which was the entertaining. That's what I wanted. So.
As long as you're not in the crosshairs,
yep.
it's okay.
Yeah, he was always great to talk to for me. So good guy.
Let's talk about Marvel specifically for just a little bit. What are some notes or standout things that were happening at Marvel this year?
Some things people loved. Immortal Thor was going on and was pretty good. Children of the Vault is a X title that a lot of people seem to really enjoy. I have not read that one. Doctor Strange was actually written by our man Jed MacKay at this point and was one of the high points. And then we also have Fantastic Four. Ryan North took over writing this and just absolutely reset everything to be beautiful. It is crazy, filled with science and filled with the family. You've got like dinosaurs dressed up as Doctor Doom. You've got all sorts of things going on. It is just a ton of fun. I absolutely love those titles. We also got Miracle Man: The Silver Age. Miracle Man had been published with, like back in the day, basically all of the major Brit creators came over and were doing that. So Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman. Gaiman and Buckingham actually were working on the title way back in like the 90s, 80s and 90s. And they got to a final issue that never actually got printed because the company went belly up and then the rights got into a mess. Marvel eventually got it. That issue comes out and then they continue on. And this is really pretty cool because they got a chance to sort of, if not finish, come close to finishing the Miracle Man story. There was supposed to be a Miracle Man one additional series. But then the Gaiman thing blew up, and yet again, Miracle Man just seems to be like doomed, where it can never publish for more than a year or two before something major blows up. So, also, Penguin actually, the folks who do the Penguin Classics books with the little penguin on the side and the like, all these famous things, they decided to publish some of the early Marvel comics as Penguin Classics. And so, for the first time, Marvel Comics now have actually been actually put into sort of that, you've got War and Peace and Anna Karenina and Fantastic Four, Volume 1, right?
Sure.
So, pretty cool.
Yep.
As far as new characters, Spider-Boy came out this year. There's also the entire Ultimate Universe versions, because the new Ultimate Universe debuts with a book called Ultimate Invasion. That has since gone on to be the most popular part of the Marvel Universe for the last 2 years. They're just winding it down now in 2026, and we will see what comes after. But the last 2 or 3 years, Ultimate Universe has been by far the most popular and interesting thing going on in Marvel Comics.
Interesting. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the Eisners for 2023 work. What were some of the best of the best this year as the award winners, at least, I guess?
Some of these I can vouch for. Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson. He actually won for some of his like wrestling comics and things like that just a year or so ago. Now, here he is. Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson wins Best Continuing Series. Nobody expected this, that a licensed Transformer book would be essentially the best book of the year. So that's pretty cool.
And he got Best Writer,
yes,
Best Writer Artist this year as well.
Yes, he did. Best Limited Series is something called Pee Pee Poo Poo by Carolyn Cash. I have no idea. That one you'd have to look up yourself.
I guess what that kind of thing could be.
Best New Series, Somna, a bedtime story, comes out from Becky Cloonan and Tula Lute. This is absolutely just a gorgeous book. It's in Distillery's oversized format. Really cool art by Tula Lute. The printing and the paper and everything is all top notch. It's very cool. Best publication for kids, we had Mexikid, a graphic memoir by Pedro Martin. Best publication for teens, Danger and Other Unknown Risks by Ryan North and Erica Henderson. Ryan North of doing Fantastic Four fame. Interestingly enough, I believe this is the first year that my wife was a voter on the Eisner Awards. And so some of these are the books that we actually were reading to get ready for voting on the Eisners as well.
Okay.
That was kind of fun. So maybe she's the vote that put Mexikid over the top. I'm not sure.
There we go.
Best graphic memoir, Family Style, Memories of an American from Vietnam by Thien Pham. Best graphic album, New, Roaming by Mariko Tamaki and Jillian Tamaki. The Tamakis have been doing fantastic work for years, and it is really cool to see them get this. Very, very talented, and doing stuff that's just different from what you'd see kind of in mainstream Marvel and DC. But it's definitely been appreciated, not only by sort of the voters here, but I think they sell a ton of copies, especially in the bookstore channel. Hip Hop Family Tree, the Omnibus, won for Best Graphic Album Reprint. We also had Wonder Woman Astoria from the Amazons by Kelly Sue DeConnick, Phil Jimenez, Gene Ha, and Nicola Scott. These books are just so beautiful. I mean, absolutely every page is a work of art. So absolutely deserves to be honored. One as a tie for Best Graphic Album Reprint. Best Writer, Mariko Tamaki. Best Writer-Artist, like you said, Daniel Warren Johnson. Penciler-Inker, Jillian Tamaki. So the Tamakis won pretty much everything. Best Coloring, Jordi Belair. Hassan Atsmane Alhayu won for Best Letterer. And this is, I think, well-deserved, because not only is he doing great work as a letterer, but he's also got like a lettering podcast and is out there talking about the craft. He's also been working on different comics journal and comics history type stuff. So just somebody who's really active within the comics world, and is also tremendously good at his job.
Yeah.
Best comics related journalism, Comics Journal got that. Comics related book, I Am the Law: How Judge Dredd Predicted Our Future by Michael Mulcher, which I have but have not read. I'm looking forward to that one. And the Claremont run wins for best scholarly work. It's called Subverting Gender in the X-Men by J. Andrew Demon. Book is cool. Also, though, for a long time while I was on Twitter, the Claremont run was actually an active Twitter account, and he would constantly be putting out stuff and the like, and it was interesting to see that way too. Really fantastic work, and a deep, deep dive on the X-Men.
Interesting. Okay. And finally, as we're wrapping things up, the Hall of Fame for the Eisners this year.
It's ridiculous. The number of judges' choices, again, I'm just going to do the names because we can't go any farther. It's Kim Deitch, Craig Flessel, A.B. Frost, Billy Graham, Gary Groth, Albert Cantor, Warren Kremer, Oscar Lebeck, Franz Masseril, Don McGregor, Kiji Nakasawa, Noel Sickles, Cliff Sterrett, Elmer C. Stoner, Brian Talbot, Ron Turner, George Tuska, Lynn Varley, and James Warren. So, a bunch of people I really like there.
And I recognize some of the voters' choice for the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. So Klaus Janson, of course, he's worked closely with Frank Miller on a lot of the Daredevil stuff, has been a regular inker, writer, artist for Marvel and other companies for a long time. Jim Lee started on the X-Men, became sort of the Marvel style of the late 80s and 90s. He's the one who drew and I think wrote the X-Men #1 book that sold like 8 million copies. So he technically is the guy who's written and drawn the biggest comic book in the history of American comics. Mike Mignola started the Hellboy universe and has ever since sort of worked to expand it. He's got an art style really like nobody else. His story style is something that has allowed him to now essentially have the Hellboy universe expand out into all sorts of different ways for years. He's also done a lot of cool stuff like Gotham by Gaslight for DC and the like, so he works in for other companies as well. But really he got in on the strength of his Hellboy stuff. Jill Thompson, who did Wonder Woman books. She worked on Sandman for a long time, did things like Dead Boy Detectives. And then she's also got Scary Godmother, which is her own title, which has been published for a while and has also made it into sort of a lot of the bookstore channels and stuff like that. And I believe even has had an animated special or two. So, yeah.
All right. Yeah, those are some great choices for the voters as well. All right. As we're wrapping up talking about comics, Dan, what were your favorite comics in 2023?
It is hard to choose just one this year because I loved Rare Flavors. I think it was weird and cool and just so interesting and different. And then the Great British Bump Off, which is just pure fun. So if you you can't make me choose between them, but they are both very different and they are both absolutely as good as comic books can be.
I will not make you pick between them. Don't worry about it.
I appreciate that.
All right. I think we've exhausted our look at comics and comic book adaptations. So let's move on and let's talk about what was going on for Daredevil in 2023. Year in Daredevil.
All right, Dwayne. So on to Daredevil it is. So we are nearing the modern day. I'm remembering all of this sort of stuff. What do we got for appearances from our man, and who's doing the creating this year?
Yeah, so I mean, in going through and looking at some of the appearances this year, it does still look like there is a lot of like reprint works that Daredevil ends up appearing in. There's tons of epic collections and omnibuses that he is appearing in, as well as like his own omnibus. The second Daredevil omnibus came out this year. The main run that we were looking at this year is Daredevil Volume 7, and it's issues 5 through 14, kind of the remainder of Volume 7. And then the start of Volume 8 towards the end of the year. The first 2 issues of that came out this year. There was also a limited series with Daredevil called Daredevil and Echo that was just 4 issues. We're not going to take a look at that, but Dan, you've looked at that a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about what you saw from that story?
Essentially, this one does start out in kind of modern day. It seems like it's around the time of what's currently going on, but it's not connected to the real regular Daredevil storyline, actually. It's Echo and Daredevil going through and kind of working through a story or mystery that goes back into the 1800s. It's got Native American themes. It's got a lot of sort of occult sort of things going on and the like. And then Ghost Rider comes in. So all sorts of stuff is happening. But you don't need this one to be able to go the regular story.
You showed me a panel of a fish at a table,
wearing a suit. He's a fish wearing a suit at a table. Yeah. So it's a little bit ridiculous sometimes too. I think Daredevil had been knocked out at that point and was sort of, hallucinating some stuff. But nonetheless, when I first, it's like, what's up with this fish? So it was a strange one.
Sure. So there you go. So there's kind of what is going on as far as appearances. As far as the creative team, we have Chip Zdarsky again continuing the run out of Volume 7. And then we have actually a new writer for Volume 8. Saladin Ahmed does the first 2 issues and actually ends up writing all of the rest of 2024 as well. Now, as a spoiler, because I was working on the notes for that for next week. Marco Cicchetto does a lot of the pencil work across these books. We also see Rafael de la Torre, Cicchetto and de la Torre together. Manuel Garcia does a book. And then once we get to Volume 8, we have a new penciler as well, Aaron Cooter. So, most of them did their own inking, with the exception of Cicchetto did not. We did Cicchetto did for some books, I guess. And then we have one other creator, Elisabetta D'Amico, did issue 7 on the inking. So, as for what happened in these books, I feel like we probably should do a quick refresher because we left off 4 issues into this story, and this is the Red Fist saga, and that kicked off. We had Matt confronting Butch, revealing his identity to Spider-Man, and realizing the Hand is now being steered by a bigger, scarier forces, not just the Punisher, but the Stromwinds and the Punisher, I guess, working together. There was this, the Fist was this group that was created to go up against the Hand, the evil ninjas, and Elektra and Daredevil did like this trial where they killed spirits of people the Hand has killed. And they ended up getting married as part of this process. And then Stick was like, yeah, let's get to work now. And let's actually take the Fist and go after the Hand. So that's all and there's like somewhere over in like Asia, Europe, almost, or more Asia to almost like the Soviet Union type area is where all of this is supposedly taking place on some kind of remote island. So we got done with the trial. They've come out, they're married, and they go back to kind of their stronghold that they've built there. And, we have, in addition to Daredevil and Elektra, they got Foggy Nelson to come with them, and they got Cole North to come with them.
Mm-hmm.
So by the end of issue 4, the ritual's complete. Matt and Elektra are declared king and queen of the reborn Fisk, as well as man and wife, officially stepping into this global war that they've been Elektra's been wanting to do for a couple years, actually, now, kind of since very early, like before Matt went to prison, or Matt/Daredevil went to prison, if you recall.
Mm-hmm.
So as 2023 kicks off, we learned the reborn Fisk actually ends up doing quite a lot, not just for Daredevil and Elektra as the king and queen. It supercharges everyone in their group. So like any member of the Fisk, now including Foggy Nelson and Cole North, are like, they're stronger, they're faster, they can do all sorts of crazy things.
Yep.
And all this was kind of based on this book that Elektra and Stick had found. And it's called The Book of the Fist, and it's literally rewriting itself to sort of guide them as to what to do next. And it's interesting because it has shown them that kind of the way the hand is working is they're going out and they're killing like world leaders and powerful and influential people throughout the world, and using something called the Lunite Talisman to replace these world leaders with undead puppets.
Yep. And
quietly steering global power while nobody notices. And like supposedly like the president of the United States is one of these puppets, and all sorts of craziness. So they're trying to figure out what to do from this point.
Yeah. It's kind of nuts.
It is actually quite crazy. So what do? They decide that they're going to start recruiting. So they need to do some more recruiting to actually take on this threat. So what they decide to do is they're going to break into the Myrmidon, which is that underwater, like super powered criminal prison. If you remember, actually, like Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm were like imprisoned there during Devil's Reign. And they're going to offer prisoners a chance to fight for them and the Fist against the Hand as this kind of something bigger, and they'll break them out of the Myrmidon if they'll come with them and help them against the Hand. Yep. So we have the likes of Speed Demon, Stiltman, we have Agony, we have Stegron, and others that end up joining up as part of this prison break. Yes. So we actually get a full issue is just them breaking into the prison, convincing prisoners to come with them, which really doesn't take actually all that much, because it's like, be in prison or come be free with us, but you'll have to, fight and kill people. Okay, sign me up, kind of thing. During the escape, however, Matt easily takes down U.S. agent and then actually runs into an old friend. Our man Robert Goldman happens to be imprisoned there as well. And so obviously it's weird because Matt's like, I don't know what to do with this guy. But again, he's sort of been steering my life. If you remember the beginning of this volume, this Goldman said that he's kind of been steering Daredevil towards greatness all along.
Yep.
So we don't actually know at this point during the breakout issue if he ends up like going with Daredevil or if he's even invited to go with Daredevil. We just know that they like kind of he knows he's there and that they cross paths. In the aftermath of that breakout, Iron Man and Captain America see footage of this and agree on one thing. Daredevil has definitely crossed a line and needs to be brought in. If I had a nickel for every time Daredevil had crossed the line and needs to be brought in, we would be, we'd probably have quite a bit of money, actually, at this point.
It's pretty nuts. A lot of lines.
Yeah. I actually kind of liked this issue with them breaking these the prison break of the Myrmidon. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's also weird though how the rest of the superhero community is yet again going like, okay, he's marrying Assassin, one of his old villains. He's breaking out villains and hiding in this weird place, all coming on the heels of the fact that just a couple of years ago, you know, he had his evil dojo in the middle of New York. Daredevil is becoming a real loose cannon in this community, you know?
Yeah. So it's actually really interesting because the next issue we see that Dr. Sasquatch is there trying to hold this unstable team together through actually talk therapy, but Elektra, in her infinite wisdom, decides to infiltrate the White House to confirm whether or not the president is one of these hand constructs. Ends up throwing him out the window onto a car as sitting out in front of the White House, which I don't know how that's a thing, but apparently it is. And, some people get it on camera, on their camera phones. Tactical win, I guess, because now we don't have this puppet thing, hand puppet leading the United States, but it's a bit of a PR nightmare, and it causes the Avengers to really take notice that things aren't, probably all that good. Maybe we should really kind of step up our efforts to bring in Daredevil at this point.
Yep. Yeah, it's a very bad look. And of course, nobody else really understands what's going on, so it
just looks like Elektra murdered the president of the United States. It's not good. So from there, Matt decides they need a test to see how the fist could do potentially against the hand. So he ends up leading a mission to North Carolina where they go to actually stop some illegal evictions from occurring. That ends up leading to needing to coordinate some bombs from being blown up in these buildings, protect a falling kid who falls from the roof of one of the buildings. That child gets caught by Stiltman, and afterwards, Bullet, one of the people that ended up joining him as part of that Myrmidon breakout, ends up leaving because he's like, I don't want to stay here and do this. I want to go be with my son Lance, who we've seen Bullet and Lance actually before. But it turns out that actually ends up being a trap that he unknowingly walks into by the hand. So it's amazing how he decides to leave, but it ends up working out really well for the hand because that was exactly what they were hoping he would do, and it leads them into another potential trap.
Yes. So many traps.
Yes. As we go forward, they know it's a setup. This war, they find out that Lance has been kidnapped by the Hand, and so they know it's a setup, but they know they need to save Lance. So Daredevil and the Fist kind of go at the Hand. So the battle is massive, and it's brutal. We have Daredevil and Elektra going up against the Punisher. We have Stick going up against Aka, the former mentor of Elektra's that we got introduced to early on in this volume. Cole North ends up actually fighting versus a now hand-controlled Bullet. Part of that whole trap, and the rest of the Fisk seems to be fighting dragons and assassins. Yep. It is actually just sort of crazy, and they lose ground. They barely escape, but Elektra, in all the chaos, ends up stealing that Lunite talisman in all that craziness, proving potentially that they could kind of do away with all those hand puppets. And it might actually be the thing that they need in order to take down the Hand itself.
Yep.
So even though they got beat, they end up actually kind of being in a potentially decent position.
Did anybody die on their side? I didn't.
A lot
see
of people
any.
got a lot of people got really hurt, but
Yeah,
no,
too, like there were
I didn't get
injuries.
the impression that anybody actually died as a result of this.
Seems odd because there was an awful lot of super violence going on, and that
Yes.
Stiltman level guys can go up against a bunch of undead ninja, and none of them actually come out with fatal injuries. Is kind of crazy to me. But anyway, there we go.
Yeah. So you think maybe things are going okay, but then things completely fall apart. The Avengers close in because they've been swearing that they're going to get Daredevil at some point. The Stromwinds actually escalate situation, and that reseed gas that we learned about, early in the Chip Zdarsky run that was being made at the prison, they end up bombing the Fisk base with this the reseed gas, which is absolutely crazy, as kind of the sort of offensive to the Avengers showing up and potentially everybody getting arrested. It's crazy. We have Elektra. She actually destroys the talisman, which reveals a truth that is rather shocking. Stick and Foggy Nelson were both resurrected puppets of the Hand. So in addition to these world leaders being puppets of the Hand, Stick actually died some time ago, and Foggy ended up dying during Devil's Reign when he got beat up by Wilson Fisk. So he didn't just get beat up, he actually got killed and then got resurrected by the Hand. And this was actually kind of like heart to heart. There was a Daredevil Foggy talk, heart to heart. He basically comes clean and says, I'm not who you think I am. I got killed by Wilson Fisk, and then they just disintegrate afterwards, and that it was like the freaking snap in the MCU. It was sort of just a gut punch, actually.
So now at that point, would that mean that all of the world leaders have disintegrated as well, and all of the Hand as well?
I think basically anybody they resurrected, presumably,
because most of the Hand are sort of like, that's why when you kill them, they just turn into dust because they already were resurrected. So presumably most of the Hand got destroyed along when the talisman got destroyed. Good part of the army went away too.
But it doesn't really necessarily matter, because then the Avengers show up and arrest most of the team. And Daredevil does escape thanks to Elektra's maneuver. But he's not the only one that escapes. One other person does escape, and it is Robert Goldman, who we didn't know if he had gotten broken out of the Myrmidon during the breakout, but apparently he did. He's got this inhibitor collar on so he's not allowed to use his powers. Him and Daredevil talk. Daredevil's like, I've got nobody else. I could use some help. Sure, I'll take off the inhibitor collar. He does, and Goldman ends up creating an avalanche so the Avengers cannot get to Daredevil and him. And so they just decide to retreat and leave, go back to the U.S. with the most of the team that they were able to arrest during that initial ambush. The next issue, we actually move forward a couple weeks. Cole North is apparently out and back in New York as well, and he is just sort of like doing his regular day-to-day thing. He's like a police officer again, which is kind of crazy. And we see Matt Murdock is like there in his apartment, and Matt's sort of sulking about how everything with the Fisk had gone, and how things didn't quite go the way they had wanted to go. No. And most, the part of his team has been arrested and all this. And North just basically tells him, suck it up and deal with it. You're a superhero. You need to, like, you know, figure out how to fix things because, you know, you put us into this mess. You're going to get us out. So he says, put on the suit and go fix it. So Matt does. He goes, he puts on the suit, and he actually goes and he confronts the Stromwinds and, like, starts to beat up Quinn Stromwind. But it's not actually before he starts a ruse. He pretends like he's got no moves to make. And so he says he's going to trade himself for Elektra's freedom. And then when they agree to that, he's like, okay, not just Elektra, but everyone that was, you know, a member of the Fisk that got arrested. And then as soon as they were agreeing to that, then he goes and starts beating the snot out of Quinn Stromwind, and in fact gouges out one of his eyeballs as part of the process. It is kind of gross, but also I've kind of been waiting for the Stromwinds to get it for a while, and one of them finally did get it.
Yeah, as people who have no, it appears, actual powers, they haven't been revealed to me secret mutants or anything like that. The fact they are still alive in a Marvel world like this, doing the sort of crap they are, is kind of astonishing, actually. So, yeah, I would be perfectly happy with them both accidentally falling out of a window sometime soon, because they're truly awful people. So, there you go.
So now that he's taken care of kind of the team that got arrested, there is still the matter of Foggy and Stick and all these world leaders. They're souls, because when the Hand kills somebody and then they, like, reanimate them, their soul is still sort of exists, but it exists in hell. And so, believing sacrifice is the only answer, Matt actually travels to Japan, to where there's apparently this gate that you can go through, or they go through, to get to the mortal plane in order to, you know, potentially rescue these people. And so he does. Actually, it's crazy because he's not the only one that ends up being there. When he goes there, Blind Spot is there sort of watching the gate. And it was like, I'm supposed to stand guard. Stick told me to be here. Try and stop or alert people if somebody comes through the gate. And he's like, okay, your time is done. I'll take it over from now. But it was totally to be like, I'm going to kill myself near the gate, because if I do, then my soul gets sucked in, and then I can go and rescue these people. He goes and basically decides he's going to do this, and then Elektra tries to stop him. He ends up dying anyway and goes into the gate. And we actually see him die in her arms for the first time after she's died in his arms. I think more than once at this point.
I would say, yeah, probably a couple of times.
Yeah. So he ends up in hell. He's reborn in a all white suit. He learns that as part of the process, he sees his dad. His dad sort of helps him along throughout all this process, and then they end up finding the beast. He ends up finding these world leaders, and they're all being held captive, along with Foggy Nelson. And they start talking, and we end up learning that the Fist is actually basically the Hand, but the head of the Fisk is the sister of the Beast that's the leader of the Hand. So it's they're basically the same organization. And yeah, it's just actually sort of crazy.
They're the guys. They're the guys from Trading Places, who are just sort of behind the scenes messing with everybody, and so they, she's I don't know who. It's almost like one of them started it first, and then the other one made their organization just to mess with their sibling, and they've been using everybody else for centuries just to have their own little fight.
Yeah, so Wild, this beast that is the sister of the beast, reveals herself. They start fighting, all this sort of thing. Daredevil ends up having to try and fight as well. He steps away, he frees Foggy and the others, gives them time to escape, and then stays behind. He ends up getting his arm taken off in the process, but he basically gets everybody out of hell, and then the gate closes. And it's actually crazy because we don't know what happens. That is kind of the penultimate issue of Volume 7, and then in the final book of Volume 7 and the final book in the Red Fist saga, we have this epilogue to the story that also seemingly sets up Volume 8. And that actually is going to be our spotlight story this week, because there is so much going on through these other books that and a lot of it is context based and absolutely crazy as it sounds, as I was trying to talk about it. So I think the best place is to sort of spotlight that epilogue story to kind of see where the chips ended up falling after all of this, because it was such a crazy story. I will say this, we did get the first 2 books of Volume 8 at the end of the year with that new creative team, but we're going to save those and we're going to talk about those as part of our 2024 discussion on the next podcast.
I think that's fair. So one interesting thing is, for decades now, Matt has been sort of very Catholic, and the whole religious element of this has been important.
Yes.
It's interesting how in these last few, where, he thinks he's got a guardian angel, he's actually going to hell and being reborn in a white suit, and essentially is almost like this warrior for God type of thing. To what extent, watching this, do you think of Marvel is essentially like admitting that there is a almost like a Christian God within the Marvel universe?
That is interesting. I hadn't actually considered that basically that's what they're doing in these books.
Well, and they're not exactly, in that we never see actually any sort of choirs of angels or whatever.
Yes,
but you do see
there's no actual physical embodiment of God or Jesus or anything like that, but it is heavily implied in the fact that he is, being kind of showing up in hell in an all white suit, and he's sort of like praying a lot and all this sort of thing. It is really interesting.
And we are almost given confirmation by negation, in that all of the stuff with hell and the fact that there are demons and there are souls trapped there and everything else is kind of interesting. Obviously, there's not really this idea necessarily of the possession and stuff like that. I'm not so sure is necessarily in the Christian canon, but a lot of the stuff there, it is intriguing that more and more he seems to be getting confirmation that his belief has some sort of physical manifestations.
Yes.
Not many people who are going to church have had a chance to wander through hell in a white suit fighting demons, and that gives you new perspective, I would assume. So
no, definitely. And we're gonna see actually more of it in that spotlight story. There's definitely some talk and some imagery along there as well. So I think we spent I had to spend a lot of time talking about what happened this year to sort of kind of explain the year, because there was so much that happened. I think we jump in and let's talk about this spotlight and what happens there. And then maybe we can wrap up with some final thoughts on the Red Fist saga.
Red Fist saga? It keeps sounding like you're saying the Red Fist saga. It is not a red.
It is fist as in hand.
I know. I got you. All right. Sir. All right, Dwayne. It's the spotlight. You've chosen for us, I think, a really good issue. Because like you said, a lot of these others, you'd have had to do basically the whole thing if you were going to do any of them. Because it's hard to just drop in for one issue. But this is an interesting one, and it's got a lot of questions. So tell me a bit about Daredevil, Volume 7, Issue 14. It's from October 2023, The Red Fist Saga, Part 4.
14, actually. It's the
14?
last.
14?
Yes.
Did they actually go that long?
They did. The entire volume is this one story.
Alrighty then.
All right, so the book opens 6 months after the chaos of the Red Fist saga. I'm saying Fisk, I think. That is crazy. All right, so the book opens 6 months after all that chaos that we talked about that basically comprises the main Red Fist saga. The world is quieter, but it's definitely not settled. We open with Mindy Libris and her daughter Bella trying to move forward, planning a new bookstore. There's a small act of hope after everything that happened with the original bookstore burning down, all that sort of thing. While in the store, Mindy swears she sees Matt Murdock outside, but just for a second. And then when she looks again, he's gone. It's the first hint that Matt's presence is still lingering, but it might just be a ghost. We next move to Foggy Nelson, who's doing what Foggy does best, fighting for people who've been crushed by powerful interests. This time, a widow whose husband was lost to the Stromco Corporation. Stromco, I think that is our good friends, the Stromwinds.
Oh, 100%.
Yes. Cole North is right there with him, digging up documents, interviewing witnesses, building a case the hard way. The name on the door now reads Nelson North Legal Services. So Foggy's found himself a new partner. And even here, both men admit they keep thinking they're seeing Matt in passing, whether it be on the street or whatever. Maybe it's guilt, maybe it's grief, or maybe it's something else. Out on the streets, Elektra is now Daredevil. She intercepts a suspicious van, dismantles the criminals inside with ruthless efficiency, and then realizes something's off. The weapons that should have been in this van are nowhere to be found. Her trail leads her to Bush Ferris, who's now calling himself Fisk, strangely enough. So he's now taken on that moniker of his dad, and who claims he's just clearing out guns from the city, not flooding the city with more. Elektra doesn't trust him for a second, as well she shouldn't probably, and she warns him that she will be watching. Later we see Foggy Nelson meeting Reed Richards in the park, where he hands over Matt's old chess set, saying Matt would have wanted Reed to have it. They talk about loss, about seeing people you've lost in crowds, and about memories, with Reed offering this thought: sometimes that's just how we keep people alive. But if anyone ever deserved to come back, it's Matt Murdock. The issue closes on a very haunting note, actually. Elektra, in street clothes, stops a small-time shakedown, and then spots a man who looks exactly like Matt Murdock entering a church. Inside, she meets a blind, red-haired pastor who asks if they've met before. She doesn't answer. She only asks if he's happy. Content, he says.
Oh.
Elektra leaves without revealing herself, and in the final panels of the book, the pastor exits the church, hears a mugging occurring nearby, and begins to shake and fall to his knees, leaving us with a quiet, aching question of whether Matt Murdock is truly gone.
Okay.
This was such a good story, man. As crazy as this whole Red Fist saga was, I really think this epilogue was sort of this just perfect end to that story.
There you go.
Like that story itself was chaotic and crazy and not necessarily some of my favorite Daredevil, but this book I thought was really interesting and very well done.
Very cool. Yeah, it was interesting. It was one of those sort of like, almost like the 80s movies that at the end of the movie they go in and tell you, or 70s, the end of Animal House, they tell you what happened to everybody years later or whatever.
Yeah.
We got kind of this idea of sort of where the new status quo is after all this. With one kind of weird thing, though, that Matt Murdock is now essentially in working as a priest. He's forgotten who he is, evidently.
Yeah, evidently.
Is it Matt Murdock? What's going on? Did I miss something where there's an explanation of this? Or did he just... Because the last we saw him was
not an explanation.
He was trying to make it out of hell, and the portal was closing, and he was getting near, and then it was like, boom. And it was assumed that he was stuck there.
Yes.
And now suddenly... he's getting ready to give gummies to kids at Mass. And there is, at this point, no... Kind of like our last one began with no explanation of how he got to where he was at and what was going on and why he no longer had his girlfriend and all this other stuff. This one, too, now just sort of goes, I guess we'll explain this later.
That is the next team's problem, I guess, at this point. Yeah.
That has become a kind of that Hitchcock thing of, you got the big twist, but then just leaving it for the next guy and seeing how bad you can mess him up and how they get out of it. So it is interesting, I think, that, they went through and talked to all these different people. The number of former, lovers of Matt Murdock who are just wandering around Hell's Kitchen now. We've got Dakota North. We've got the librarian. We've got Elektra protecting the place. God knows how many other people that they didn't stop by to talk about this time. But, so yeah, it is weird that they just sort of are like, oh, well, he's back. We'll figure out why later.
To the point, Elektra's the only one that we know of, at least, that is aware that Matt Murdock might actually exist still. And she's not, she's sure, but she's not 100% sure, so she doesn't really say anything. He actually comments about her smelling like lavender, which is I
think jasmine,
that's what it was. And that is something that he is, as Matt Murdock / Daredevil, has mentioned specifically in the past several times throughout the Chip Zdarsky run. So it was very much a nod to, hey, this is definitely Matt Murdock. We're not going to tell you how or why he is here, where, how he got here, why his memory seems to be gone, how he became a pastor, but this is definitely him. And then if you didn't pick up on that subtle clue, the not so subtle, oh my God, there's a mugging happening, and suddenly my body's starting to twitch and I can't contain myself.
Yep.
There's a very much an overt sort of clue that he's not actually gone.
Yeah, he's lost. It seems like it's very obviously Matt, and it's he's lost the memory, but he still kind of has all these hazy. Not only kind of he thinks he knows Elektra, but also there's obviously still that urge to go in and do the right thing, or do the Daredevil thing, whether it's right or not. I guess. So yeah, but it was an interesting end. It was a good way to wrap things up. Zdarsky has had a fantastic run on this. I'm going to miss Cheto's artwork because it's just achingly beautiful, and the number of times I've just sat and marveled at Elektra's hair over the last God knows how many issues.
She's got some really good looking hair throughout all of this.
He is so good at drawing just the flowing hair on his female characters and but just an amazing artist. And obviously he went on to do great things. He's still working for Marvel, but it's going to be a big change heading into the new volume. So
yeah, to your point about kind of Catholicism and God and all this sort of thing. The talk between Foggy and Reed Richards, I think, was really kind of a really great part of this. It's like, two people, they're catching up, but they don't really talk. If you recall, throughout the Chip Zdarsky run, Matt Murdock and Reed Richards would play chess in the park. And so, Foggy arranges to meet Reed Richards in the park. He gives him the chess set, and he's like, I've been thinking a lot about him, and I keep thinking I'm seeing him and all this. He sort of has that conversation that he had with Cole North kind of at the beginning of the book, where they're talking about thinking about him, potentially seeing him in the crowds, that sort of thing. And I love the fact that, like, he knows how smart Reed Richards is. And he's like, so if anybody's going to know something about how this whole thing works, it's probably Reed Richards. And I love that Reed Richards is like, this isn't a science question. This is a faith question.
Yep.
And then he proceeds to talk about the fact that, he's lost people and that he's come to the feeling that it is the way you keep people alive, is you think you see them in the crowd, you think about them, they're there with you, even if they're not actually there with you. And so I thought it was really, really interesting, that whole conversation, because it again speaks to, that faith and everything that has really, in the last, I would say, few years, definitely kind of really came to the forefront of this Daredevil title. And it's now sort of kind of the synonymous thing with Daredevil now.
Yep. And I mean, obviously, Zdarsky is somebody who does so many different things. It's not like he's just writing, this sort of thing. This is the guy who, I mean, last year I want to make sure. And I mean, this is not a guy who's doing just religious comics all the time. He actually worked with Fraction on Sex Criminals a couple of years ago, for heaven's sakes. So
okay.
But it is very much, this is something where I think Alethra is even sort of on some sort of a journey to sort of start respecting some of this sort of stuff. She basically trashes the Kingpin's entire, Kingpin Jr. or whatever's entire place, but she's wrecking all the pictures. She gets to one that's like a religious icon of Christ on a cross, and she puts the sigh away a little bit and doesn't to that one.
Yeah.
So and after that she just leaves, and she's like, what's happening to me? Because this is a woman who obviously was not necessarily
that wouldn't have been a
religious.
thing that would have bothered her. Yeah.
So I do think this is going to be something moving forward probably we'll still need to deal with. And with him ending it as a priest, I think it tells us that we're not done with the analysis of religion in Daredevil quite yet.
No, probably not. So I would highly recommend this. Even if you don't like, I don't think you necessarily have to read the whole main Red Fist saga storyline to really just kind of appreciate the story that's being told here, as well as just, like you said, the artwork is quite fantastic across this entire run, but specifically in this final book.
Yep. Very cool. Sometimes nice to just drop in for one story here and there, but much better to read 700 of them straight in a row, though. So that's still what we're recommending, right?
Right. Yeah. Why don't we jump in and let's quickly go through the rapid fire questions.
All right, sounds good. Sir, who is Matt Murdock in love with this year?
He seems very much in love and married to Elektra this year, until getting stranded in hell, and then we don't know, because now there's this priest in Hell's Kitchen that looks strangely like Matt Murdock.
Yeah. Biggest villain of the year?
Definitely the Hand, with a kind of side credit to the Stromwinds, I guess, because,
And to the Demon Twins down there as well.
Yes.
How about
Yes.
law? Was Matt practicing a lot of law this year?
Funny enough, you wouldn't think so, but there actually was some law that happened. Not like courtroom Matt Murdock in the suit, taking down a criminal or prosecuting somebody or defending somebody. He actually wrote a brief that got an injunction on those illegal evictions that were occurring in North Carolina that he had filed.
There you go.
That stopped the evictions from continuing after, they stopped the building from getting blown up and all the other stuff that happened in this. So he did actually do some law practicing this year.
A little bit. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Anybody new know Matt's identity this year?
I'm going to say no. I don't think so.
No, not really.
Obviously now with the new identity, I would say Elektra, but I don't.
One less person, because Matt no longer knows Matt's identity. Yeah. So we're negative one.
To your point, yes. Elektra might be the only one that knows who Matt Murdock is.
Mm-hmm. Is he a good guy this year? Is Daredevil a good guy?
So I think his heart was in the right place for a while. Some of the things he was doing, though, were not good guy things. Yep. I mean, breaking criminals out of a maximum security prison, probably not the best thing to do. He ends up killing himself, which seems like a good thing, but he was doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah. He didn't have his necessarily solid year in all of it, but I'd say the highest of highs. The whole, going to hell and sacrificing yourself in a white suit, questing for your god against demons. That's by whatever definition he has of good. This had to be near on.
This had to be pretty close to up there as far as
the highest level he can attain. So
right.
He's basically St. George against the dragons this year.
Yeah.
Anything new about his past?
I did not have anything new about his past this year. It seemed to be kind of focusing on the here and now as opposed to any real flashbacks of the past.
Yeah. How about his outfit?
That did change. We get that all-white version of his suit when he gets into the beast's realm of hell, and looked mighty cool in it, I will say.
Yeah,
just sort of leapt off the page because everything else is, reds and oranges and browns and this, and then you have just this vibrant sort of glowing, almost neon white suit that he was wearing. He looked quite dapper, actually.
Yep. Be cool one of these days to get like a Mr. Knight and Mr. Devil team up. I think that would be a good time. And biggest moment of the year. What would you say this year?
So I have Daredevil dying in Elektra's arms as part of it, and then him staying behind while Foggy and all the rest of them escaped from hell, and sort of that final shot of him when we know he's not actually going to make it out of there. Yeah.
A lot happened this year, but those sound like pretty good options, I would say. So
yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, and that does wrap it up.
Yep, because I don't have a takeaway anymore. We're too near to be taking things away. Other than, man, was there a lot of Daredevil going on this year. So there you go.
There was. It's gonna be interesting seeing where we go from here. We have Matt the Priest coming next, presumably. And hopefully we find out what the heck, how he ended up back on the mortal realm again, and maybe where his memory went in the process. So there's a lot of questions there.
There you go. Cool. All right, sir. You got a wrap up for us?
Yeah, I think we're going to be a bit long. Thank you all for listening all the way to the end. We really appreciate it. We only have so many of these left, so I'm glad you were able to stick around to the end. But that is going to wrap it up for us for this week. We'd like to thank you all for joining us. If you're new to the podcast, please consider subscribing on your podcast player of choice. That way you'll get each new episode as soon as it's released. If you've already subscribed, we'd appreciate it if you'd share the show via social media or leave us a review. That'll help other new listeners find the show that much easier. Now, whether you're new to the podcast or you've been with us from the beginning, we'd love to get your thoughts on this week's show. Did you read the Red Fist Saga? We'd love to get your thoughts. Maybe you saw one of those movies and weren't as bummed about the DC films as I was. Let us know. You can send us those comments via email. That address is comments@comicsovertime.com, or you can reach out to us on Blue Sky. We are at Comics Overtime there. Dan,
Absolutely.
2 big episodes left, 2024, 2025. We've got Father Matt coming.
Yep.
It's gonna be a big finish, I think.
Still got all of these in my boxes in the house, so I can actually just read the floppies to get ready. So pretty cool. Pretty cool indeed.
Very nice. All right, until next week, take care, everybody.
Hey, see you later, folks.